Hi there, welcome to Hardware Heaven. I'm Stuart, and today we're going to be taking a look at a product that has been a long time in the making. That is the Roccat Ryos MK Glow. This is Roccat's very first mechanical keyboard. A few of the other main competitors to Roccat have been doing mechanical keyboards for a while, so you could say TTE Sports, Razer, SteelSeries, all those guys have been doing them for a while. Roccat don't tend to rush products out just to keep up with the competition. They tend to do a lot of R&D and design work and get the software right and add some of their own unique features rather than just throw out a board. So hopefully with the, say, year and a bit they've had to come up with something new compared to Razer and the other guys, they'll have something interesting to show us in the Ryos. This is the Glow version of the board. There is also a standard edition and a pro edition. We'll talk a bit about some of the differences in this video while we're going through, as well as comparing it to a BlackWidow Ultimate and a board from TTE Sports as well. So just so you get a feel for everything that the Ryos offers, from the standard version right up to the pro version, and we'll chuck a trailer on the end that shows some of the features of the pro specific to the way the lighting works on that compared to this board. So let's get started. We'll have a quick look at the box and then we'll get on with the keyboard. Here we have the box for the Ryos. It's a fairly large box. Obviously there's my hand size in front of it, so it tells us it's going to be a pretty big board that's inside it. Nice clear picture of the keyboard on the front, and then some information on features about illumination, what switches are used, all that sort of thing. Some more information up here about some of the things that the board offers, and then just a note that this is a US layout and the type of keys that are used, or switches that are used, whatever way you want to look at it. Turning the box round, there are some larger blurbs on what the different functions of the board are, what special features it has, all that sort of thing. So pretty standard box, plenty of information, some nice clear pictures of the board, and anyone who picks this up in a shop is going to know a lot about the board to help them decide on their purchase. So just open it up now. And inside, pretty common for keyboards, we have a separate sub box, and then if we open that up, inside is the keyboard itself. It's got a plastic cover on it, no foam or anything surrounding, but there is a lot of cardboard to protect it. If we lift the board out, come back to that shortly. Inside we get a little leaflet from Roccats in its own little plastic bag. There's no CD or anything like that in here, just a quick start guide, gives us a lot of the key functions. There's a note on how to use macros and all that sort of stuff, so all pretty standard so far. We just had a look at the box for the Ryos MK Glow, and this is the board itself. So what we've got here is a main body of the keyboard, which is predominantly plastic. There's not really any metal sections or anything like that. There is some rubber on the base, we'll get to that shortly. The main layout of this board is US, as we mentioned when we were looking at the box. There'll be slight variations depending on where you're buying it, so a UK layout, an EU layout, all that sort of thing. There is a large cam rest down the front here, not removable, it's built into the main body of the board, and it's a kind of a matte finish that's on there. There's slightly glossy areas, so the Roccat logo and wording, and then this trim that goes around the edge of the board is gloss as well. What we also have here for the finish is a smudge proof section. So Roccat call it, I think it's micro dotted they've gone for their marketing term, and you can see that there's dots all across there shining in the light and things like that. What it's designed to do is to stop some of the really major smudging you get on a normal glossy finish. So there's glossy dots through it, but there's also those kind of slightly dull areas, and then through doing that they hope that it'll look a little bit better over time than some of the full glossy boards. For the keys, these use the Cherry MX Black keys, and what that means for us and on a basic level is that they're much quieter than, say, the Cherry MX Blue switches, and they have a little bit more resistance to them as well. So when you're pressing the blues, you get a audible click, and you can feel that click as well when you're pressing them. These don't make any noise really until you get down to the bottom of the keystroke, and we'll do a little comparison between a couple of different Cherry MX switches later on in this video, but for now, reasonably quiet buttons, so that's all good. It's got anti-ghosting, all the normal things that we would expect from that, and there are a few different tweaks to the way that the keyboard is kind of basically designed. And instead of having LEDs up here for caps lock, things like that, we've got a little notification area here, so you would have caps lock. We also have a LED for the easy shift button, so when you press that, this would light up, and so on. Elsewhere, function button here, that helps us with the secondary functions of the F keys. So up the top we have media keys here and here. Calculator can be launched with that, your browser with that. This one, F11, controls, in conjunction with the function button, the brightness of the board, and then you've got record macros and sleep. You can also remap that to be a second Windows key or second start button key, depending on what you want to call it. And overall it's, as I say, a pretty standard layout. Now, all of the Ryos boards, and there are 3 of them, share the same base body. So this is the Glow version, there's also a Pro version, and then there's a standard edition. Now, what you'll get on the Pro is very specific to the corners for some of the functionalities. So you can see these blank sections here, blank panels, as if there maybe should be something there because it's raised away from the surface. On the Pro version, the left hand side ones would be audio in and out, so 3.5mm connectors. On the right hand side you would have USB ports, so you lose them on the Glow version and on the standard version. So if you're the type of person that likes to plug in your headset and maybe a mouse or a flash drive or something like that into the keyboard just for ease of access, then you might want to consider the Pro version of the board. The other way that they differ is that although this is a fully backlit board, all of the 100 odd keys are LED backlit in blue, and you can vary them with the brightness key or in the software. It's very much a all or nothing approach on the Glow, so you can have 6 brightness levels including off, and the Pro version gets much more in depth. So on the Pro they're individually backlit again, but you get to control the individual backlighting, so you can light up specific keys, you can go more advanced and have a graphic equalizer effect, so when music's playing the keys light up in time with the music, and then you can go super advanced with it and use the software development kit and do things like, if you're doing a beat 'em up and you've got the health bar up the top of the screen, you can have the lighting lit right the way across when you've got full energy, and as it starts to go down, the lighting starts to turn off from, say, right towards the left in time with your health bar, and just some really cool extra touches. Might be overkill for a lot of people, which is why the Glow could be ideal, but also it's a lot of fun, and you can even control that sort of thing with your smartphone on the Pro. There's a smartphone app for Android and iOS which allows you to take control of your keyboard. If we flip over the Glow, and again just a reminder that this uses the same body as the Pro, we have the cable coming out the middle of the board. It's a kind of rubberized plasticky cable. It's 1.8 meters long, and it ends in a Roccat branded USB port. It's silver and not braided. It would be nice to have a braided cable on the middle board in the range. The Pro one we would definitely want braided. The standard one, not really that bothered. It's good to have some cost savings on that one, but the middle one could do with a little bit of braiding. That would be nice. It's something that, say, the Cone XTD mouse has braided cable and things like that, so it's common on Roccat products. You can route this cable out through the top there. It's got various different channels all the way through to help you in routing and keeping your cables tidy. Even down to the fact that if you had your mouse plugged into the ports on the top, you could run it down here and then out the front of the cable, anything like that. There are two legs on the back of this. They have rubber feet on them to stop from slipping, and when the board is flat it has 5 rubber feet, so 2 at the back corners, 2 at the front corners, and then a nice big strip down the front there of rubber. It just keeps it nice and steady on our desk and stops it from slipping about when you're getting really, say, aggressive in your typing or your gameplay. It's not going to move at all. It's a 1.6 kilogram weight, which is reasonably average for a mechanical gaming board, and it's 50.8 centimeters from left to right and 23.4 centimeters from front to back, so a big chunky board. And we can actually show how that compares to some of the competition. Just bring in the BlackWidow Ultimate here, and if we line that up roughly with the back corner there, you can see there's a big chunky section there where the Ryos is a lot bigger than the BlackWidow, and it's a good inch or so on the kind of the width of the board, so from left to right. Much bigger the Roccat one. This particular board here also allows us to show a couple of things that are differences in why Roccat have done what they've done in the surface of the Ryos. So this is the gloss version, the Ultimate of the BlackWidow, and you can see we haven't done anything to clean it up, and it's pretty manky. There's smudges and fingerprints and stuff that have happened from everyone using it over time, so that's what the smudge-free surface on the Ryos tries to avoid. Whether it'll work or not we'll know over time, but I mean, to begin with, doesn't seem to be any real smudging or anything like that, so it's quite good. And this is also a slightly different switch that's used in the BlackWidow. So we talked earlier about the noise that the keys make and the resistance. You obviously can't tell resistance on video, but it's a slightly more resistant key on the Ryos, and the noise on the BlackWidow you can hear is quite different. So you get that click halfway down as the key activates, whereas the Ryos is quiet from top to bottom through the key press, and it's only when you really tap it and it hits the base that you get that noise. So it activates part way down. If you get used to that level of activation, then you actually really never hear any noise from it other than the very basic noise from the keys, whereas the BlackWidow quite noticeable all the time. So they're very similar in weight, the BlackWidow and the Ryos. The other mechanical board that we happen to have lying about is from TT Esports. This is the Meka G Unit Illuminated, so it's the newest of the G Unit boards, and it's roughly the same width-wise. It also has the gaming buttons on the side which give it that extra width. Possibly the TT Esports one just that very slight bit wider, but nowhere near as deep as the Roccat board here. There is a removable palm rest for the TT Esports one, but as we said, this one is not removable on the Roccat, so that makes all the difference in terms of the amount of desk space that you need to be able to use either board. Width-wise, they're pretty standard, so at their thickest, very similar. Obviously the Roccat goes that little bit thinner at the front because of the palm rest, but very similar layout, all that sort of thing. There's separate media keys on the TT Esports one that can be handy for some people, but overall very similar key layout. So just to summarise, all plastic, matte black, special non-smudge surface around the keyboard, which is good. You've got anti-ghosting, you've got the ability for around 500 macros, you've got that easy shift button which allows you to duplicate keys, so have 2 functions on every key. You can store all your settings in the keyboard because of the 2 megabytes of flash memory. All in all, a pretty decent design. Nothing that stands out as being a real issue or anything like that. Obviously if you do like your separate media buttons and things, that would be useful to have, but it doesn't have them here. Would be nice to have a braided cable, all that sort of stuff, but overall a pretty solid start to the design of the board. So let's now take a quick look at the software, see how that all works, focus on a little bit on easy shift and how macros are programmed, things like that, and then we'll finish off the review. The first thing that we wanted to show about the Roccats software is that when you first install any of their products that have upgradable firmware, the control panel automatically launches a firmware update on the first launch. So say you've bought a mouse and it's been on the shelf for say 6 months or something like that. When you plug it in and install the control panel, not only will it be the latest driver because you've gone to the website and downloaded it, it'll also check the firmware, and if needed it will flash that firmware for you. So you're pretty much always guaranteed with our Roccat product that when you get it home you're going to have the latest firmware almost instantly, and that is also the case with the Ryos. So as you can see here, the control panel has popped up, it's come up with the firmware update, and we're just going to kick that off. So when we do that, it takes a few moments and then you see the progress bar starting to go up, and within say less than a minute, it usually is on their products, the firmware's flashed. It asks you to unplug the keyboard or the mouse, plug it back in, and then that's it, updated to the latest firmware. The application does need manually restarted. That's really about all you have to do other than clicking OK, so it's a nice quick and simple way to get up and running with that. So here we have the Ryos main control panel. We can see up the top that there's a little summary saying that we've got the latest driver and firmware on there, which at the time of recording this is version 1.22. Now this is a pre-release version of the control panel. Just need to mention that because there may be a couple of little performance improvements on the control panel or bug fixes for anything that we could come across, but from a quick look around before we started recording, there doesn't seem to be any significant issue, but it is a pre-release build, so just be aware of that. So on this front page here, which is called main control, we have the configure caps lock key up at the top left. Now what that gives us is control over the easy shift function, and as we mentioned earlier when looking at the overview of the board itself, over on the left hand side where caps lock would usually be, there's the easy shift plus button. Now that allows us to activate secondary functions on pretty much all of the keys on the Ryos. And so it's like pressing, say, Shift and S would give you an uppercase S. So pressing the easy shift button and another button on the keyboard gives you a second function, and that's user configurable, and we'll look at that shortly. You can also set it to just standard caps lock. You can completely disable the button if you want, and you can also use the Roccat Talk functionality to share settings across your keyboard and mouse. So for example, change the DPI of your mouse from your keyboard, things like that. So while we're talking about the mouse, let's bring up the control panel for a Kone XTD, and you can see that the two control panels are very similar. It would be nice to have one control panel for all of the peripherals, but they share a lot of the layout and the basic functionality, so it is easy to switch between the two of them. It just would be nice for them to be built in together. Maybe that'll come in a future update, so get rid of that for just now, and let's keep on going with the keyboard control panel. So up at the top right, key illumination, and we've got the brightness here, so we can turn the backlighting off completely by sliding that down, or there's various steps on there that we can build up the brightness, and when you use the actual keyboard itself, so the function and F11 it is on this board, to do that, it moves up without being clicked on. So over on the left, configure the function key. That function key I just pressed in conjunction with F11 is located 2 buttons to the side of the spacebar on the right hand side, and so what we can also do with it is configure it so it's a right side Windows button. So where your normal start button or Windows button, whatever you want to call it, is over the left, you can have a secondary one over on the right, and that might be more to some people's taste depending on the game you're playing, where your hand's placed, things like that. It could make a difference to have that on there. Key illumination allows us to change what the brightness is going to be after a particular period of time. So if we are going to be walking away from the PC and we don't want it on full brightness when we're away, you could say, right, after every 15 minutes of there being nothing going on, dim the illumination to 20%. Anything up to 30 minutes is available, and then you've got 20% steps for the illumination. On the left hand side, again, we have more enable disable keys, so you can turn off the Windows key so you don't accidentally hit it when you're gaming and drop back to the desktop. You can also turn off the tab key, all things like that, just little extra configuration options that not every keyboard gives you. And that continues on with the sound feedback over the right hand side. So sound feedback is something that Roccat have been doing for quite some time now. They have been giving us DPI cues and things like that. So if you were moving up or down your DPI, the mouse originally would say to you DPI up, DPI down in the Roccat voice that is pretty much the company voice for all their products. Nowadays we get a little bit more advanced. We've got very specific numbers for DPIs, so if you maybe move up, it will say DPI 3200 or 1600 if you're dropping down from there, and gives you that vocal cue about what you've actually done with the buttons you've been pressing, and it lets you know where you are in your game settings and allows you to just have that little bit more control over what you're doing. So it's a nice touch most of the time, and the reason why it's good that they have the ability to turn off these sort of things is trophy notifications, just being one example. So trophies are something that Roccat have been doing for a while now. There are 16 available on the Ryos, and it's a little bit of fun more than anything else, but it also has a little bit of an interesting aspect to it as well. So trophies are awarded depending on how much you use functions on your product. So on the left side here we can see that W, A, S and D are being monitored, thumb buttons are being monitored, things like that. Because this is a new build, there isn't a lot of keystrokes on these, and if we were to move to a different PC, all these statistics would be lost and we'd have to start again. So it's not something that's stored within the keyboard, it's very much software based, and you can reset the things, but it gives you a little kind of nice view of what you've been doing button wise and things like that. So when you're going along, you get these achievements, and suddenly out of nowhere you'll be, say, watching a video on YouTube and you've turned up the volume to listen to it loud. That video has ended and you're scrolling through the comments to see what people have been saying about the video, and then suddenly out of nowhere the Roccat voice will basically scream in your ears, achievement unlocked, or whatever wording they were using for that I can't quite remember at the moment. And the ability to turn that off is great, because when you're sitting and you least expect it and you've just scrolled your mouse or you've tapped a key and suddenly your PC shouts at you with a set of headphones on, it's not great. So the ability to turn them off is really good. I'll just also bring up the mouse control panel and show you the trophies in there, and you can see when you've not done anything, and this being a new install, there are no trophies unlocked at the moment, but you can see it's been tracking my left button clicks. Are up at 15,000 now, over 15,000 total clicks, and the scroll wheel movements, all those sorts of things are being tracked. And so when I tip over maybe 20,000 left button clicks or something like that, it's going to give me a trophy, and that's basically how it works. So it's a nice little bit of fun, but it's good that you can turn it off when you don't want it shouted at. You can also set the volume of the Roccat voice as you go. We've also got the ability to reset the drivers, and if you noticed when I was going through the different screens, this section down the bottom here always remains. So profiles, you can set to standard Windows profiles, you can have 5 profiles, and these are stored in the onboard 2 megabytes of flash memory, and as well as having that built into the board, we have a 32-bit ARM Cortex processor, so that's kind of controlling everything that's going on in our board. All our macro recordings, things like that, are going through the onboard processor, and our settings are being saved in that flash memory. We can also load other people's profiles, save our profiles to share with our friends, and create them from scratch, all that sort of stuff. So that's the type of thing that's ideal if you're maybe playing in a team, or your friend has the same game as you and he's created some really good macros that are helping them, and then they pass it across to you and you can start playing it yourself. For the key assignment screen, you can see that it defaults to the macro keys over on the left, and there are 4 key areas that we can start to configure. There's the macros, the thumb buttons, the main board, and then the function buttons up the top. And as we mentioned earlier when we were talking about Easy Shift, we can configure the Easy Shift back in the main control, which was there. So it's not available to click here in key assignment, but pretty much every other button around the board can be clicked and configured to whatever you need. So looking at the macro ones, you can see that out of the box, M1 is configured to Shift+1 as its primary function. If you were to then hold down the Easy Shift button and press M1, you would get Control+1, and then you can tailor that to whatever you need, including very specific application settings for your email, for your internet. You can also go into predefined macros for different games, so there's the Lord of the Rings one there, Dragon Age, Skyrim, loads and loads of different things that are all preset macros, or of course you can create your own, and then you can start configuring all the buttons across the board the way that you want, and Easy Shift gives you that second backup function if you want to use it. Of course you can configure completely new macros as well. Now what we found with this particular macro manager is it isn't necessarily the most intuitive thing in the world. You would think that you would just walk into the screen, hit start record, it would do everything for you and that would be the end of it, but actually if you click start you get told no, that's not what you're meant to be doing. If you click new, again, no, that's not what you're meant to be doing. What you actually have to do first is go up to macro select, which isn't the most obvious thing in the world for someone who's just starting out and creating a new macro. Then you can select, say, Dragon Age, and it will bring up the list of macros there, and you get the look on the right to see what's going on. And once you've actually gone in and selected the particular game or application, it's at that point you can click new, name your macro, and then you start to record, and it will pick up any key presses that you do. You can have record delays, you can do repeat functions, all those sorts of things, and then stop recording, gets rid of your macro, saves your macro, and then of course you can delete it if you wanted to. So once you get it in there and you start clicking about, it's easy to pick up what you need to do, but just it could be a little bit more intuitive, or maybe give us a wizard when we're going through just a step-by-step thing. If this is the first time you're creating a macro, you know, click this, click that, click the next thing, and make it a little bit easier for the user. But overall it's pretty fast to create macros. As we saw before, you've got this third screen here for the trophies, and then we end up in the update and support tab. So here we can click the driver download button just to head up to our browser and to take us straight to the Roccats site to download the latest drivers. We get a little summary of the firmware and driver that are installed. We can also email support, go to the online support pages, all those sorts of things. So just a nice little support panel there that gets us to where we need to be if there's any problems or questions that we might have with the Ryos, or indeed any Roccat product. So that is our main control panel. Hi, so that was the Ryos, the MK Glow edition of the Ryos anyway, and overall it's a pretty well designed, good quality gaming board. There's a lot of positives about it. Obviously one of the main ones is the keys that are used. If they'd put rubbishy keys on this, then there'd be no hope for it, but the Cherry MX keys are tried and trusted. The fact that Roccat have gone for the black version of the Cherry MX keys is very good in our opinion. There's nothing wrong with the blues or anything like that, but we much prefer the quieter action of the blacks. If you're in an environment that really doesn't allow you to make a lot of noise with your keyboard, then this is definitely a much more appropriate keyboard to use. There's the nice little bit of resistance as well to the keys, which isn't present as much on the, say, the blues as one example. So it's a good typing experience on here. Lots of nice feel to it when you're actually gaming. In terms of the key features for gaming, we've obviously got the macro buttons and the thumb buttons. It would be nice if the thumb buttons were angled slightly differently, so when you've got W, A, S and D, you can hit pretty much bang on in the middle of the T2, but if they were just twisted and ran kind of diagonally down the board, if I just lift up a little bit further for you, so like that, it would make it a little bit easier to hit each one as you're going. It's not hard, but it would just add that little bit of a difference. There's obviously a few of the key gaming features, like being able to disable the Windows button, which is present on a lot of gaming boards. We can also remap just about everything on this board, which is great. The easy shift button isn't something we can remap, but the rest of the 100 and odd buttons can be remapped, and that's ideal. And of course, easy shift is something that's very specific to Roccat and is something that really helps them stand out. So it's great on a mouse when you can press the button and double the amount of features that are functions that you can do on a mouse, but when you consider how many buttons are on a keyboard and how many that then gives you when you're doubling up, there's a huge amount of flexibility in how you can configure your board. 500 and odd macros in total is what Roccats say you can configure on here, and that's in addition to obviously the standard media buttons and things like that are on there. Some people would prefer, I guess, hard proper media buttons maybe up in the space up here, but having the second function on there is absolutely fine. And software that Roccat provide is good. It's nice and responsive, it's easy to configure in most of the screens. There's the fun little touches like the achievements and things like that. So overall it's a very solid product all round. You could get a little bit picky about some of the design. When we first opened it, we weren't too keen on the micro dotted surface. Obviously it's a lot of plastic. Overall that might not be to everyone's tastes, but the cable is another thing. Braided would be great. On a board that costs $100 it probably should be braided, but that's just getting really picky about all the different things that could be on a board, and really there have to be cost savings somewhere. In terms of whether we would go for this one or the Pro, obviously if you connect a lot of devices to your keyboard you're going to want to think about the Pro. The lighting though is very much going to be down to each individual user. So the backlighting on this, all keys individually lit, it's great, 6 brightness levels, it's more than enough for most people. The ability to auto dim and all that sort of stuff, all great. Whether you need to go for the full lighting of the Pro and have it do all sorts of fancy graphic equalizer things and stuff like that, very much down to each user. It's going to be about a $30, maybe $40 difference between the Glow and the Pro, and so whether that $40, as one example, is worthwhile for your particular budget really depends on what you want to do it. It's definitely very cool, and we'll put a trailer on the end of this video that shows you how some of the lighting effects work. Also lets you hear what the Roccat voice is like, the one that's going to be shouting at you whenever you get an achievement. So, you know, personally I would go for the Glow. It would be nice to have the Pro and all those fancy features, but it's probably overkill for maybe 99% of gamers that just aren't going to use all those features. But for when they're used really well, it's something that does add that little bit of kind of something new. And it probably should as well, because this has been a long time coming. The Ryos Roccat have been, you could say, lagging behind a little bit in terms of the keyboard technology, because they've only had the standard gaming keyboards, whereas this mechanical board is kind of brings them up to where a couple of the other manufacturers were a few years ago. So definitely worth the wait. Pro has some really cool stuff. The Glow is a really good, decent, solid gaming board. Nice software, plenty of features, hugely customizable. Love the buttons on it, the Cherry MX black switches, and overall, yeah, a nice, good, solid gaming board. We're going to give it the recommended award. If it just had those little tweaks like the braided cable and stuff like that, it would have been a gold award product. That doesn't necessarily mean that the Pro is a gold award product, because obviously there's the price difference to consider there and things, but for the one that we've tested here, the Glow, it's yeah, a really good quality product. So stay on the video for the trailer of how all the individual lit buttons do on the Pro. Remember to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you soon.
And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And Roccat saw the light, that it was good, and harnessed its power. trailblazing your path to supremacy with a world of possibilities. The most advanced, most customizable mechanical keyboard ever. Nobody comes close. Use the Roccat-engineered per-key lighting to illuminate your key bindings, your macro sequences and cooldowns, your system controls. The included software development kit ensures endless options. Have your keyboard work as a hit indicator. Use it as a health or mana bar. And lots more. Only your imagination is the limit. Suits every gamer. Pick the Cherry MX key switches you want, available in the 4 most popular colors. Suits every game. Easy Shift becomes Easy Keyboard. Over 500 programmable macros and 3 thumbster keys. With N-key rollover, you'll never ghost again. Get the rock-solid support you need with an integrated jumbo-size wrist rest. An innovative smudge-proof surface gives you a sleek, glossy look with no fingerprints left behind. Fueled by up to 2 32-bit ARM Cortex processors and a powerful 2 megabytes of flash memory, no feature sacrifices performance, with every keystroke and macro executed in real time. Coming soon, the Roccat Ryos Mechanical Gaming Keyboard Series. And when you fall asleep, your keyboard does too.